This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How are you doing, Rob Barretts? My engineer sitting on the other side of the glass. What are you doing? Your Christmas list over there? Yeah? Am I on it? Am I on it? I better be. Hey, I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Did you ever get so fed up with something you just had to do something about it? Maybe you didn't know exactly what to do, but you knew you had to do something. Well, next time you feel that way, consider it an inspiration for, I don't know, a book. C.E. Andrews has had it with political correctness. It's driving him nuts. It also drove him to get a book published. It's called The Unraveling of America. So, C.E. Andrews, how you doing? At what point did you decide this was a subject you needed to unpack?
I just got fed up. You know, I was born in this country, and I've been around for over 60 years now. And I've just seen this country over the last decade or so just start falling apart. And so I just started thinking about it and researching it and talking to friends and talking to people and really people from both ends, liberal, conservative, whatever. And I just really got fed up with all this. You can't say boo anymore without being sued. And people's emotions are on their sleeves. I mean, come on. And this political correctness garbage has just destroyed so many, well, these 8 areas that I talked about.
What are the 8 areas?
I'll just say the first one really is the government and politics. I mean, they have taken political correctness to a whole new level. When they start looking at laws, I think the first thing they go to is political correctness. What's going to be the most vote-getting thing that we can do to get more people on our side? Immigration is just huge when it comes to political correctness. And one that I'm really heavy on is religion. I was a pastor for over 20 years, and political correctness has just infiltrated the church. And then the Constitution, the media, racism, our education system, at least out in California, our education system is totally upside down. It's sad to see what they've done from the time I was growing up to the education system today.
Well, do you think Donald Trump is politically correct?
Yes and no.
I'm surprised because most people feel that he is the antithesis of political correctness and one of the reasons he's in the White House.
Well, and I believe that to be true. And you know, I think one of the biggest faults that we have had over these years is we have divided our country into 2 political agendas. You know, we got the Democrats, we got the Republicans, and then you got all the others. Stand up for America. I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. Stand up for the principles of America that this country was founded on. And I think that's why Trump got elected, because he started standing up for the principles that people believe in.
What is it that you hope to accomplish with this book?
Well, I would say I would hope to unite the country, because I think that so many people think we are so far apart, but I think we are so close to uniting if we would just let certain issues just go. One of the things I'll talk about is immigration. You have the people all far on the left and far on the right, but it's not the immigration issue, it's the illegal immigration issue. And so many people forget about that one word, illegal. And so what I hope to do with this book is to get people really thinking about what's happening to this country. I'm not trying to change people's political views. I'm just trying to help them to understand what is happening. Why is our country going so far? I mean, I grew up in the 60s, so I know all about riots and the Watts riots and everything else. So I know all about that. But when you have a peaceful march that turns into a riot, that's just out of control.
Yeah.
And that's where our country is.
Do you feel like it's either too far left, too far right, and the majority of Americans are somewhere in the middle, and it seems like we can't find that middle ground?
Absolutely. The sad part about it is the people that are so far left and so far right are so boisterous that they have a greater impact than the people in the middle. And I think that's what happened in the last election. People in the middle said, hey, wait a minute. We're going to stand up and we're going to start saying stuff here.
What did you do for a living, or what do you do for a living?
All right, I'm retired now. I spent 20 years in the ministry. I have a doctorate in counseling, and I was a pastor and a counselor for 20 years. Prior to that, I was in sales most of my life. But right now, I'm writing books, and this is my fifth book. And I'm also writing movie scripts and producing movies.
What is it that, you'd like to see happen now?
I've gotten the book in the hands of a congressman. I got the book in the hands of a couple of assemblymen here in California. I'm out promoting. I've got a book signing coming up in January. I'm trying to do all I can to get it promoted out there. This is the first book of a series of 5.
On political correctness?
I'm calling it the Patriotic Series.
Oh, okay, good. You know what? You should send one to Fox and one to CNN. See what happens. All right. K.P. Trout is a physicist, and he's published all kinds of articles on physics, including something called the Tarzan swing, which I found really interesting. We're going to get to that in a second, but first, the name of his first published book is entitled When I Opened My Eyes, The Dwovian Encounter. All right, tell me about this swing.
It's a lab that uses string for basically a thread for a vine and a water balloon in place of Tarzan. And the students have to try to calculate the trajectory of Tarzan. There's a hot wire that cuts the thread partway across, and the water balloon goes into free flight and goes through an opening which is surrounded by pins. And if the students calculate right, the balloon goes through and gets caught in a container. And if it doesn't, the balloon hits the pins and pops. So it's that's one example of an article I wrote with Chuck Gaston dealing with physics labs. I've also written some articles dealing with laser microphones and bubble levels and things like that.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
So you basically wrote a science fiction novel.
Correct. I enjoy good stories, and I kind of have an active imagination, and so I had some time off while healing from a surgery, and just started writing. Actually, I wrote about 80% of the book on my iPhone, believe it or not.
I do.
I would sit and write, and I made up the story and used my scientific knowledge and weaved it in. And I like science fiction that's somewhat realistic, not too far out there in terms of unbelievable. And so I started writing a story, and my wife would come home from work, and she read it and said, "Hey, that's pretty good." She said, "You ought to make that into a book." And so I just kept chipping away at it and started putting it together. So without giving too much away, it's a story about an alien civilization that's in trouble. They have a problem that they come to planet Earth to try to solve. And they use their technology, and they're on the planet for quite some time, and they take data consistently for years and years and trying to solve their problem using human beings as kind of their test subjects, if you will. And they're discovered by a couple of scientists that she's researching sleep. She researches the genes that cause sleep in human beings, and she realizes that sometime in our past, the genes have been tampered with. And because the specificity of the way the genes were altered leads her to believe it was no natural cause that causes these genes to be altered. And so one of her friends, a scientist, Dr. Duplay, he comes along and teams up with her and encourages her. And meanwhile, the aliens are discovered by a couple living outside of the Pittsburgh area, and these people kind of come together and interact with this alien, and they struggle throughout the book to know how much they can trust them, whether they're being lied to by the alien or whether they're honest beings. So anyway, I really like the book. I've been getting a lot of people that have been reading it telling me they enjoy it. And I think it's a good science fiction novel for those that maybe haven't read science fiction in the past or haven't been big fans of it. I think it's almost an adventure story on planet Earth, but deals with some alien technology and alien civilization that's visiting us. And I'm going out in the community. I have a stand set up at a local show to sell some books and to talk to people about it. And I have, plenty of students that have responded to me in a positive way about it, hoping to get out and about more to maybe some science fiction shows and things like that with it. Even had one of my friends who's kind of become one of my biggest fans told me he didn't want it to end. And, I've had a couple friends saying, when's the sequel coming out? And I think it gives people a lot to think about, and recognizing that this is a very real possibility. I think when you look at it at the end of the book, you sit back and you think, geez, that could really happen. I could see that happening. And that's one of the things I like about it.
All right, very interesting stuff, KP. Thank you. So you take a guy named Jake Handler, a phys ed teacher, K through 5, who's been writing limericks and poems for birthdays and other events his whole life. Combine that with a passion for classic rock, and what do you get? Rock on, Billy. Hey, Jake.
So the story is about an 8-year-old boy who is trying to become a famous rock star. And in his journey along his path to stardom, he meets characters and all these insects and people and animals that are actually music related from rock history. So he meets the Beatles, he meets monkeys, he meets Floyd dressed in pink, and he sees Rolling Stones along the way. He might step on sticks, and so on and so on. And in the end, well, I'm not going to spoil the end, but it has a strong moral to how that would certainly relate to an 8-year-old as Billy is, and hopefully the kid can enjoy the alliterations and the rhymes and just overall the story. That you can't rely on somebody else to make you what you want to be. So he asks other people he meets if they can help him become famous, but the moral is that you need to work hard and do it yourself.
Nice. Why the fascination with classic rock?
It's something I'm into. It's my favorite genre of music, and I connected my job, which is teaching kids, with my passion for music, which is an older crowd. And while I don't expect a child to understand a reference to a Beatle named Ringo, but hopefully the kid connects with the alliterations, the rhymes, and the strong moral. And of course, the parent hopefully connects with it more than your average or more than your typical children's book.
Yeah, you might have more parents buying this book than children going, hey, look what he did with this. This is pretty funny.
Yeah, so the goal is for certainly for the parent, and for the kid to enjoy it in their own way. And they don't have to understand the references, but there's a strong moral and all that, like I said. So, there's kid-friendly introductions for sure.
What grade do you teach?
I teach K through 5, kindergarten through 5th. I'm the physical education teacher, so I see the whole school.
All right, so did those kids inspire you at all?
Yeah, for sure. I read my book to them a lot, and they love it. And tomorrow is actually an author visit day, so tomorrow I'm actually reading it to the entire school at once. So I'm excited for that.
Great. Did you have to set that up, or did they invite you to do it?
The principal set it up and invited me to do it and asked if it's okay, and I said absolutely. So it was really nice of him to do that for me.
Did you ask him if it's okay for students to buy copies when you're done?
No, I didn't. I am going to give out a free copy to somebody in each grade, but I'm not going to ask them to purchase.
Yeah, you're a nice guy, Jake Handler. I mean, that is your audience, so nice of your principal to let you read to the whole school. Rock on, man. We're going to rock on, too. Right after these words, don't go anywhere.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books, and unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them, and they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
Hey, we're back on the Page Publishing Book Club, and so are you. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rosidi. Eddie Ingram, TV producer, writer, host. He's been writing and reciting poetry for years. People would even ask, do you have any copies of your readings? He never did. Well, he does now. They're in his book entitled The Man of Wonder. So how'd you make this all happen, Eddie?
My life changed, and I had some extra funds, and I decided that I would invest in myself and in my poetry and my books and try and do something with them. And so that's what I did. I decided to actually make an investment in me and in my work. And I've been really pleased with the reception.
That's excellent. Make an investment in me. I like
Yes.
that.
Yeah. The book I'm working on my second book right now, but the first book I did was called The Man of Wonder, and it's a poem, but it's really a story. It's a story that was written in rhyme. So yes, it's a book of poetry, but it's really a story, and it's a story about life and about success and about responsibility, achievement, and family. So that's really what it is, and it felt that it would be useful for the younger people, because one of the things I've been able to do through my job is to go into the elementary schools and mentor. And as a mentor, I find that these young kids, these second and third graders that I've been working with, have issues. This book, I felt, would actually be something useful for them, because it's something that they love listening to: poetry, rhymes, rap. But it has a message that I get to challenge them in accepting responsibility in life, and I get to challenge them by reciting this poetry or this book or reading this book to them with this message. I wouldn't have done it if I would have been able to give back to kids. I mean, and like I said, as a mentor, going to the schools, I mentored, I gave back. I gave my time to try and help some young people. But also I was able to help myself, because I helped other people.
Yeah, nothing feels better than inspiring a child.
Yeah.
So that's what this whole thing is about.
It's about, yes, inspiring young people. My next book right now that I'm working on right now, it's about peer pressure. Same peer pressure we go through in life. How do we deal with those issues? So it's about what can I do to make a difference in the lives of young people. And it's the same thing that I had to do to make a difference in my life. Learn about life.
Yeah, because nobody can learn it for you, that's for sure.
Right, yeah.
Are you able to sell any of these books? Are you interested
I
in?
sold a lot. I've been blessed. Like I said, I've been blessed to be able to sell books, a lot of books. And I actually got a response from Head Start here in Orlando. They're in the process of purchasing books right now to utilize in the Head Start program for young people. I went to them, and I shared the book with them. I have no problem going to people talking about my work. Writing the book, I've been told, and I understand that writing the book is one part of the process. But the final part of the process, the hardest part of the process, is actually going out and selling the book. And so basically what I've been doing is going out and selling the book. I take it with me everywhere I go. I go to Tampa. I introduce it to a few people. I sell books in Tampa. I go to other groups, and they ask me to share the book. I end up selling books there. I just show it to people. They say, "Can I buy one?" So it's been moving. I've been able to sell some books, and so I've been excited about that.
Well, you should be excited, Eddie. You're working it. You deserve it. Great advice. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Jonathan Baker Horncock wrote 4 books between 1986 and 1988 after he returned home from Vietnam. The name of his book is Only the Candle Shall Burn. And a lot of it was already written by the time you got home, wasn't it?
Well, I was home from Vietnam, of course, and got married and had a family and that, and my mom always said you should write books. I said, "What are you talking about, Mom?" I said, "Well, those letters from Vietnam you always wrote me were so beautiful." And then when I was stationed in San Diego for a while going through school, I met some people from a church, and I started going to church with them, and I got to know the families and that. And the day before I left to go to Vietnam, I only had 13 days leave, and I wrote a letter to the church congregation. And when I was in Vietnam, the girls that attended that church with me wrote me and said that they read that letter in the congregation, and almost everybody had tears in their eyes. So my mom kept pursuing, you should write a book or something. She always said a joke book, but I said, Mom, I can't. I'm too deep inside. But anyway, she read all of my manuscripts. She really loved them, and she's gone now, God bless her soul. But I vowed that I would become an author, and I succeeded in my vow to my mother. So I feel good about that.
When were you in Vietnam?
I got out of Vietnam in 1968, plus the Marine Corps, and came home and got a good job with AT&T in the technical field, and everything went. I started writing in 86 to 88, and I put all that aside and I moved to Arizona, started a new career, and then 12 years ago I retired from Phoenix and I moved here. So I'm quite happy I made the right choices at the right times.
Yeah, good for you.
It's about life, my experiences, and what I've actually experienced and what many of us experience every day. It's the emotions we feel, whether it's tragic or happiness or, just anything that I try and relate to the reader when they're reading that. Most of us have gone through that particular experience, and I can communicate better with them if they feel the emotions and see the picture by the words I described.
So is this your story when you were in Vietnam and the things that happened to you in Vietnam and how you communicated what was going on there to your family and friends through letters?
That's about it, mainly to my mom. It's a long story, but the family was broken up when I was young, and I wrote to my mother, and she enjoyed the letters, and like I said, she said I should write a book, and like I said, I kept my vow to my mother. She was really a wonderful person, and we went through a lot of tragedies in life together.
How are you telling people about your book?
The biggest advertisement is word of mouth, of course, as we all know.
Right.
But I'm trying everything through talking to people and handing out cards, and I've been in the paper, and hopefully I think there's been another book signing down here in the library, probably next month. I'll go to that again, and just hope for the best. But I enjoy writing, and whatever happens after that, up to the people. If they like my work, the word of mouth, like I said, is the biggest advertisement you can have anywhere. So I'm just hoping for the best, but I'm still proud of what I've done in my life. So.
Well, you should be proud, Jonathan Baker Horncock, and thank you so much for your service. Finally, David S. Walker likens a trucker's love for travel to that of a cowboy in his saddle in his book entitled Circle Home West. But David, you were an English teacher, right? And never a trucker, never a cowboy?
No, I'm not. The long-haul truck driver is the last American cowboy. They roamed the West just like the early cowboys of the Old West. The book was based on my love for the American West. I've lived in the American West since leaving the Midwest many years back. I've lived in Oregon for most of my adult life, and I love the American West. The book has been in the works for a while. Much of it reflects some of my own experiences based on my travels throughout a lot of Montana, the Dakotas, Arizona, Nevada especially.
Well, you say that the guy wakes up one morning, has his coffee, and it's just another Monday, and then something happens.
Yes, it does. I put poor Clint Anderson through quite an ordeal. He's just a regular bloke, just like the rest of us. Life is a little mundane. I like to tell people when they ask me about the book that this is an old-fashioned cowboy and Indian story set in a contemporary time, the new Wild West. He is hijacked, and the hijacker happens to be a Native American.
Okay, and he goes on an odyssey.
He does go on an odyssey. The book has a number of underlying messages, including a strong environmental message. It has a very poignant and very strong psychological, philosophical message. But by the time Clinton Anderson gets back to the West Coast, as he travels across the Intermountain West, down into New Mexico, over to LA, and by the time he reaches the West Coast, his life has been completely reorganized, changed, and his destiny is in the hands of fate. It is my first published novel, but I've written for most of my adult life because I taught English. I was a school teacher, a counselor, an administrator. I have a 35-year career behind me in education.
That's
and
great.
So,
that's how you were
yes.
able to travel.
Well, that's part of the reason that I traveled. I did have summer times to travel, and that helped. I plan to do a book tour this year, starting in January, and we'll go from there.
All right, sounds like a plan, David S. Walker. And I think that's it, right, Rob? Another Page Publishing Book Club in the can. I apologize for my cold. It's my holiday cold. I swear, I always get a cold just before the holidays. I think it's to remind me to stop trying to get everything done at once, but I can't help myself. Anyway, thanks to my authors for another great show. You can download it anytime you want, at 710wor.iheart.com, or you can come back and hang out with me and Rob at midnight on Saturdays. It's great. You decide. We are already hard at work, very hard at work on our next show. So we'll see you next time on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.